Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the May 20th, 2020 Park Board meeting being held at Carnegie Town Hall. We've got some Park Board members here in person, and we've got a number that are on the conference call. So let's determine, Rita, if we have a quorum, please.
Jim Stavenger.
Here.
Ann Noctigal. Todd Sunleaf.
Here.
Mike Begeman. Mick Conlon. Rick Weber.
Here, by phone.
Thank you. We have 4, so we do have a quorum. Got Lorraine. I'm sorry, Lorraine.
Lorraine, yes, here.
So we do have a quorum. Good, thank you. Board members that are on the call, if you make a motion or want to speak or provide some commentary for our sake here at Carnegie, would you please identify yourself so that we can make sure that we know who's speaking. All right, let's tackle the agenda. First up is the approval of the minutes from the April 15th meeting. Before we do that, who else just joined?
This is Mick Conlon.
Okay.
Here.
Very good.
Karen Leonard is also here as city attorney.
Oh, thank you, Karen. All right, let's go ahead and tackle the agenda. First up is the approval of the minutes from the April 15th, 2020 meeting. I'd entertain a motion to approve in a second.
This is Lorraine, move to approve.
This is Todd, second.
Let's do a roll.
Stavenger.
Yes?
Noctigal. Not here. Sunleaf.
Yes.
Conlon.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Lindquist.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Approved.
All right, thank you. Motion approved. Now's the time for public comment. If you're here in Carnegie or on the conference call and you're a member of the community or the public and have an opportunity, you want an opportunity to speak either on an open topic that's important to you or on an agenda item later on in the day, I'd ask that you identify yourself at this time, please. All right, seeing none, hearing none. Report of the standing committees. First up, marketing and public needs. That's Ann, Mick, and Rick. Did you guys meet? Okay, no report there. Park
Jim, I'll report. I was thinking Ann was going to report.
Yeah, Ann's not on the call or in person here today, so go ahead, Rick.
Okay, so our committee did meet.
Oh, sorry, guys. Are we just now? This is Ann and Mike. We are both on a conference call here from my office. Sorry for the delay in our meeting.
All right, let's go ahead. We're on the report of the standing committees. First up, marketing and public needs. Ann, your chair there. Anything that you'd like to add from your meeting?
No, everything that we talked about is on today's committee agenda.
Thank you. Park system planning and development. I chair that. Mick and I think Mike attended. Everything that we talked about is on the agenda today. Partnership and recreation.
Yes, both Todd and I met via phone conference on that, and all items that we discussed are on today's agenda.
Okay, thank you, board members. Any unfinished business that anyone would like to bring up at this time? All right, hearing none, let's go to the new business. First up is the CIP plan. Mike Patton.
Thank you, Board. Mike Patton, Parks and Recreation. First off, let me say thank you for all your efforts you put towards informing the CIP process this year. It's been quite a few months of putting all this together, some of it remotely towards the end, so we're excited to have put together what we feel is a pretty good plan. Let me start out with some of the major changes and key points involved with this year's 2021-2025 capital plan. Really was developed to take care of what we have first, while still trying to accommodate growth of the community. We wanted to start to implement recommendations from the recently adopted comprehensive plan, as well as address the board's overarching priorities. And we feel this plan does that. One of the biggest changes, we've organized a lot of the projects into 8 key programs, similar to our cyclic programs that we've had in the past, to help us really prioritize and start to tackle those projects within the program, as well as a few individual projects that will come and go throughout the years that won't be ongoing programs. We've also combined some of the multi-phase projects that were in last year's plan into larger scope projects with the goal to attract more contractors interested in our projects, start to benefit from a larger scale of economy and get better bid prices, and really try and minimize disturbance to the park. So sort of a get in and get out approach so we can accomplish as much as possible without interruption of use by the neighborhood and visitors. I'll give you a quick summary of the 2021 projects. As you know, it's a 5-year plan, but only the first year of the plan, 2021, is actually appropriated, with the out years being more of a planning document. We continue to fund our cyclic programs to take care of our existing infrastructure. We have significant funding and land acquisition for new park and trail development, as well as home acquisition in the Roselada Terrace, Tomar Park area. The Space Needs Project for expansion of the park maintenance campus at 49th Street is in the plan. We have funding for the Greenway and trails for not just reconstruction of the existing plan, but also development of a new spur, the Cherry Creek spur in the northwest portion of town. We have projects to address our community and regional parks, that being Falls Park, Terrace, and Harmadon. We've also introduced a project to start to look at our indoor recreation programming, which was a recommendation of the comprehensive plan. We've introduced a feasibility study to start to investigate how to best provide that service. And we've introduced a project to address the Elmwood Clubhouse and cart storage building. Some of the larger projects that we've introduced into the out years were recommendations from the comprehensive plan, which included was the renovation of our existing aquatic facilities and ice rinks, with the first one being McKinnon Park Wading Pool and ice we've put into 2023 for design and 24 construction, and followed up with Frank Olson for Park Master Plan in 2024 and design in 2025. As you know, our plan will go into finance against all the other priorities across the city, and they'll have to be weighed for importance, and that all hinges on sales tax projections as well as other priorities across the city. So how that comes out, we don't know yet, but as we always remind you at every year, this is your recommendation for what we would like to see happen, and it'll always change before it's finally put together.
So Mike, remind us again on the timeline of when some of this opportunity gets finalized and the budget gets finalized.
Right, so the next steps after board recommendation of the plan is to get back with finance. We're looking in that June, July timeframe to look at the citywide balancing against all priorities. Finance feels by that time they'll have a better projection of where sales tax may end up later. At least we'll have more data coming in, and then it'll go to city council in September as a part of the overall city budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Which was actually the last thing I was going to say. So with that, staff recommends approval of the plan, and Tori and I are here and we can try and address any questions you might have.
Any questions from the board members for Mike or Tori or Don?
Hey, Mike, this is Todd. Say in our committee meeting, we discussed maybe highlighting the approved items so it's easier to navigate down below where you've got the approved totals and the requested totals. Was that going to happen, or?
Yes, we'll make those adjustments after we go through citywide balancing. So the final document will highlight the previous approved to the new approved.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Mike. At this time, we take a motion to approve the 2021 to 2025 CIP plan.
So moved. It's Conlon.
That was Mick,
Weber, second.
Mick and Rick. All right, let's take a roll call, please.
Stavinger,
Yes?
Noctigal,
Yes.
Sunleaf,
Yes.
Begeman. Begeman,
Yes.
thank you. Conlon,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lindquist.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
All right, thank you, board. Tomar Park Master Plan, Tori.
Thanks, Jim. Good afternoon, board members. Tori Miedema, Park Development Specialist for the City of Sioux Falls. Just want to introduce the people I have with me, Chad Cucker from Confluence, who worked on the Tomar Park Master Plan, and Cassie, and I can't remember her last name. Oh, sorry, Carissa Dice with the Sioux Falls Tennis Association. So why we're here today, the Sioux Falls Tennis Association has proposed to undertake a project to build a 12-court tennis facility at Tomar Park. As part of that process, we asked them to engage us and Confluence in updating the master plan for Tomar Park to make sure that the complex will fit into Tomar Park and how that'll affect the future improvements that we intend to look at for the park. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chad to walk through the improvements. And then the next item on the agenda will be the Sioux Falls Tennis Association MOU, which I'll go through. Thanks.
Hi.
Hey, Chad.
Chad Cucker with Confluence. I'll give just a really quick overview of the master plan. As Tori mentioned, there's two phases. Phase one is essentially a 12-court tennis complex at Tomar Park for the Sioux Falls Tennis Association. And the associated parking, there's an additional 63 parking spaces with this phase, as well as stormwater detention. Obviously, this is located within the floodplain, so we have to be very sensitive to earthwork and drainage concerns so that we're not making drainage worse elsewhere in this neighborhood. Phase two of the plan addresses longer-term issues. One of those issues is the home buyout program that's currently underway. You know, what happens in that area, what opportunities exist because of that land that's being accumulated over time. And the second issue that's driving this master plan is potential for relocation of the bike trail from the north side of the river to the south side of the river as part of a future interstate on-ramp construction project. So a couple features of this phase two of the master plan, increase of parking on site by about 290 more parking spaces for a total of about 550 spaces. When meeting with the neighborhood and stakeholders, existing parking is on street, clogging up the neighborhood roads has been a big concern, so this alleviates that. Realigning the Phillips Avenue entrance and putting the existing stormwater ditch in a pipe will make the park more usable, no longer a big ditch running through the park. Another entrance off of Twin Oaks Road to that primary parking lot to try to bypass traffic through the neighborhood. Creation of a new neighborhood park, and that's located on the land to be acquired, so it really makes a better, more comprehensive neighborhood park closer to the neighborhood. Also walking trails within that new area, as well as another flex field green space, both for programmed and unprogrammed events. So in this process, we did meet with, we had a public meeting on March 2nd. We met with the Reardon family who originally donated the land for Tomar Park. We met with the Disc Golf Association and Dakota Alliance Soccer, and the Sioux Falls Tennis Association, as the client has been obviously very involved both during design and through the public meeting. So that is a quick overview of the project, and I take any questions that you might have.
So what kind of feedback or comments did you get from the community?
Well, at the community meeting we had, I bet we had 50 people there, and it was held at Prairie Green Golf Course. And the biggest comments were, I guess one would be questions about the home buyout program from neighbors and making sure that we let them know that that's not a mandatory program and that's going to happen over several years. We also had a lot of questions about traffic and parking from the neighborhood. So again, trying to provide that extra parking in the park, and that bypass with Twin Oaks Road was important. There'll certainly be, during final design and construction, more, studies and information to work through, but that was brought up. And the other thing that was brought up is just making sure, from a tennis perspective, when they hold tournaments, that there was a concern that there's a basketball game going on or pickleball or something next to the courts, that we need to work through that challenge as well. So those are really the three things that I heard during that public meeting.
Might elaborate just a little bit. So one of the main concerns as far as parking from the neighborhood was along Lotta Street. Right now there is on-street parking on both sides of Lotta Street. And so they were concerned about traffic getting in there, especially emergency vehicles and things like that. So what we did discuss and how we adjusted the master plan was we widened Lotta Street onto the park property a little bit to allow more room to get emergency vehicles through and to still allow the on-street parking. But overall, really good feedback from the neighborhood, the association members that came from Sioux Falls Tennis, and then also a couple of members of FAST. Falls Area Single Track had some concerns about the trail, and we're really excited about the plan.
Thank you. Board members, any questions for Tori or Chad?
This is Weber. So would you say you're confident that all the neighborhood concerns can be addressed?
Yeah, I think, everything that we heard, we addressed. Again, some of the conversation came with the Rose Lotta buyout program. There were a few members of that neighborhood in there. Again, it's a voluntary program. This is a future plan looking into the future, 10, 15 years. So they're not going to get forced out of their home or anything like that. The buyout program is to assist them, and if they want to move out and get out of that flooding situation, they can.
Other questions?
So yeah, Rick, to answer your question, I think we addressed the neighborhood concerns that we heard, and it was very favorable.
Okay, thank you.
Is the buyout, is that already in process? Have some of the homes been purchased already?
Yes. So last year after the flooding, I believe the city council approved $1 million supplement to start the program. And I believe at this point we've purchased 9 houses, and then there's another 10 houses that they're looking at buying this year. We're going through the FEMA assistance program to supplement the funding that's in our capital program. So we're just waiting on that to pull the trigger on the next 10 properties, or however many we can get. And then we have a lineup for 2021 as well. So it's been well received so far, and a lot of interest.
Okay, let's move on. Thank you, Tori and Chad. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the Tomar Park Master Plan.
Move to approve. This is Noctigal.
Second by Lorray.
All right, let's take a roll, please.
Stavenger,
Yes?
Noctigal,
Yes.
Sunleaf,
Yes.
Hageman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lindquist.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Tori, you're back up again. Sioux Falls Tennis Association MOU.
Okay, yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, this Sioux Falls Tennis Association MOU is part of this Tomar Park Master Plan. So as Chad mentioned as he was going through the master plan, phase one is the proposed project that Sioux Falls Tennis Association would construct. They're proposing to fully fund the project, which includes the 12 tennis courts, the construction of a basketball court and a volleyball court that are being displaced as part of the complex, and then the additional parking. You can see it all in the phase one exhibit that's in your packet and on the screen. A couple of other things to mention. This MOU is non-binding, but we like to spell out what both parties are doing so that everybody knows and goes into it with open eyes. So Sioux Falls Tennis would fully construct the project and then gift it to the city once it's done. One of the stipulations is that they have to have all their fundraising complete before they start construction on the project, so they don't get halfway and have a unfinished project. We've given them till 2025 to start and finish construction. Part of that is due to the current shaky financial situation. They're not sure how long the fundraising will go. If they are successful earlier than that, they can start earlier. All the plans will go through our office and typical city plan review and built to our standards. One of the items that they're looking at to use to help raise the funds is naming rights. So we do have that in the agreement so that everybody knows that. They will still have to go through the naming ordinance policy and get park board and city council approval, but they think that's important and a good tool that they'll have to be able to help raise funds by naming some of those courts. With that, I'd answer any questions. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Carissa, did you want to share anything? Okay, thank you.
I'd mentioned Sioux Falls Tennis Association has been really good to work with. We've been working with their staff members. They funded the update of the Tomar Park Master Plan and have been really good to work with throughout the process.
Any questions for Tori? All right, if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the Sioux Falls Tennis Association MOU.
So move, Weber.
Second, Noctigal.
Stavenger,
Yes.
Noctigal,
Yes.
Sunleaf,
Yes.
Hageman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lindquist.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, thank you, board. Next up is the Brandon School District Joint Park School Site Development Agreement. And I believe, Don, this is one that we recommend approval to the City Council for their consideration and their approval, correct? Correct. All right. Tori, you're up again. We love having you in front of the crowd.
Thought you had enough of me yesterday, huh? The Brandon Park School site, this site is at 41st and Sparta. It's their new elementary site that they're going to begin work on. It's on the far southeast side of Sioux Falls, in the Sioux Falls city limits and in the Brandon School District. We purchased this property with them, as well as another one at Fred Assam Elementary back in 2009. And so the site has been undeveloped in a farm lease until now. So this is a typical agreement that we have with the school districts when we start to develop the site. We've found that it's much more efficient that we put our work into their large construction, school construction projects so that we get economy of scale. So we added our site, initial site development in with their project. The initial site development that we're talking about is grading of the site, topsoil, landscaping, including trees, things like that. Perimeter sidewalks, so there's no gaps to get the neighborhood to the school. And then we also put a playground, and they put a playground in each joint park school site. So we have included that in their bid package. Basically they would front all the costs and then we would reimburse them. Right now the estimate for our work is around $330,000, but we do pay them on actual work completed on the site. They actually have started grading the site at this time. And they look to open the school in fall of 2021. And so then we would, again, open our site up at the same time. With that, I'd take any questions you might have.
Board members, any questions for Tori? All right. On this one, since it'll be going to the City Council, it's our opportunity to recommend approval to the City Council for their consideration. So I'd entertain a motion to recommend approval to the City Council.
Lindquist, recommend approval.
Second, Begeman.
Second. Oh.
Sorry. I got a seat.
Stavinger,
Yes.
Noctigal,
Yes.
Sunleaf,
Yes.
Bigeman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lindquist.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Board. Next up, the Nike Heartland Cross Country Regional Kelby. I guess you've got everything else that's on the list, so that's good.
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately, you end with me. Good afternoon, Park Board members. Kelby Maris with Parks and Recreation. This agenda item is to approve a $10 per vehicle entrance fee to Yankton Trail Park during the Nike Heartland Cross Country Meet in November. The proceeds from charging this entrance fee would be used to continue with event improvements and is consistent with the entrance fee that they charged at last year's meet. Staff recommends approval.
Any questions for Kelby on this? All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the application to charge an entry fee for the Nike Heartland Cross Country Regional.
Move to approve, Noctigal.
Second, Sunleaf.
Stavinger,
Yes.
Noctigal,
Yes.
Sunleaf,
Yes.
Bigeman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lindquist.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Kelby, Dunham and Legacy Usage Agreement.
Yes, this usage agreement would be with Falls Area Single Track, or FAST, for the construction and maintenance of single track trail to be developed at Legacy and Dunham Parks. We have a very long and good history working with FAST as they have developed and maintained single track trails at Leaders Park, Tut Hill Park, and Yankton Trail Park. This would add additional single track to the west side of town, an area which we currently don't have any single track. And this usage agreement is similar to the agreement that we have with them for Tut Hill and Yankton Trail, in which really most of all of the things, the deliverables within the agreement are on FAST. They are required to construct and maintain the trail using guidelines established by the International Mountain Biking Association, as well as the U.S. Forest Service. They are to do any trail maintenance. They are to pick up litter along the trail and responsible for that. They're responsible to conduct an annual site inspection to assess the condition of the trails. They are required to coordinate and conduct a neighborhood meeting with our assistance if it's deemed necessary. Allow the improvements to be used by the general public during hours of operation. And really the two things that are on the city for us to do through this agreement is to provide litter receptacles and garbage service, which is something we do in those two parks already anyway, and to continue to perform general park maintenance, again, which is what we already do at Legacy and Dunham Parks already. We did research any deed restrictions for the use of Legacy Park, and there is a deed restriction that the property must be used and maintained exclusively for neighborhood park facility and conservation and nature area. Bicycling is, of course, an activity that we allow through our neighborhood parks and feel that that fits. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions, and staff would recommend approval of the usage agreement.
So just as a reminder, this is non-motorized.
Right, this is non-motorized. It would include, no, it is non-motorized. It's all pedal assist, and there is no, even with our single tracks, there is no other power-driven mobility device allowed on these, mainly because, these single track trails are 18 to 24 inches wide, and they're dirt. So it's really not conducive to any other use other than a bicycle. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Kelby, in our committee meeting, we discussed a potential phased approach. Is that going to be an option, or?
Yep, it is an option. It's not, we believe we've got that in the contract already, or in the usage agreement as far as the construction goes, so we didn't add it exclusively to the usage agreement. But that's typically the way they construct their trails anyway, is they start with a small piece and then get it opened up for use so that people can, that way they can start to get some momentum and get some energy and enthusiasm toward the new project and new trails before they construct more. It's a similar approach we're taking right now at Tut Hill Park. They've got essentially two of the three phases of the trail that they're constructing there are already complete, and they're working on the third phase.
What's their timeline for getting this operational?
This is a 5-year agreement, so we haven't really set anything in stone as far as when it actually has to be done. But it's a 5-year usage agreement with an option to extend for another 5. And knowing this group, they're gonna, once this is approved, they're gonna get out there and get trail constructed so they can, drive that momentum and enthusiasm.
Any other questions for Kelby on this? All right,
This is Conlon. Just a comment. I spent a fair amount of time on the Tut Hill trails, and they're excellent. They do a great job. So,
thank you, Mick.
I would recommend that we move this.
That would be the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Begeman.
Did you catch that, Rita's mic? Okay.
Stavenger,
Yes.
Noctigal,
Yes.
Sunleaf,
Yes.
Bigeman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lindquist.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, Kelby, the Barry Grieve Memorial Tree donation.
Yes, this tree and landscape donation would be planted in memory of Barry Grieve, who was a Lincoln High School student that lost his life in an auto accident last winter. It is being donated by his classmates from the Spanish immersion program at Rosa Parks Elementary School, thus making Fred Dolly Park an excellent location for this donation and landscaping. They have done all the fundraising and will do the installation, and staff would recommend we accept this donation.
Any questions on this item? Or comments? All right,
I'd move for approval as Weber.
Thank you, Rick.
Second, Sunleaf.
Stavenger,
Yes.
Noctigal,
Yes.
Sunleaf,
Yes.
Bigeman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lindquist.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, Kelby, the Kayak Rack donation.
This would be a donation from the Sioux Empire Paddlers for a kayak rack, essentially a bicycle rack for kayaks. And their proposed location is the Farm Field Access location at 57th and Western Avenue. The kayak rack would not be a permanent structure. It would be substantial enough that it would require some equipment to move, but it was not something that that we would need to permanently affix. And one of the reasons why we think that is an excellent idea is, of course, this area is prone to flooding. And in the case where we anticipate flooding, it would be something that we could remove prior to the flooding and then put back after the fact. This kayak rack idea is something that we have visited with various groups about over the last several years. And finally, the Sioux Empire Paddlers have gotten together and got a rack ready to be donated to the city. And staff would recommend that we accept this donation as well.
So Kelby, do we store this, or can it stay outside all the time?
It can stay outside all the time. It's essentially, bike rack. It's made of steel, so it's something that would weather and stay outside. But it is movable in the event that we would need to. Again, with the prone to flooding, so that it wouldn't be damaged.
Other comments or questions for Kelby on this one? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to accept the kayak rack donation from the Sioux Empire Paddlers.
Motion to approve, Lindquist.
Second, Noctigal.
Stavenger,
Yes.
Noctigal,
Yes.
Sunleaf,
Yes.
Bigeman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lindquist.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, last one, the Veterans Memorial Park paver donations.
Yes, this would be the donation of 11 new pavers to be installed at Veterans Memorial Park, all following the procedures put in place for us to add pavers to the park. And staff would recommend that we accept these donations so we can install the pavers.
Questions or comments for Kelby on this? Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve, Noctigal.
Second, Bigeman.
Stavenger,
Yes.
Noctigal,
Yes.
Sunleaf,
Yes.
Bigeman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lindquist.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, thank you, staff. Don?
Yes, thank you. Excuse me, my mic wasn't on. I'll start over. Start out with a construction update, status of some projects that we've got going on out in the park system. Mike's got a few that he'll tell you about, and then I'll ask Tori to come up as well and do the same.
First off, I just let you know that we're wrapping up construction on the Buffalo Wall at Sherman Park. It's actually turned out really, really great. If you get a chance to drive by it, I would go look at it. I think it looks better now than it did before. The contractor has patched the street back, and it's really just some remaining landscape items yet to put in. We have to do some seeding and some restoration work and a little bit of paver work in front of the wall, but it's turned out really great. The other project I'd talk about is the Kirby Dog Park at Fort Sod. The contractor has mobilized to that site and set up a temporary construction fence. They've also started to do some of the removals with some small items we wanted to salvage, as well as kind of starting to map out where they're going to excavate and remove soil. So that's just underway, and Visions Construction's the contractor on that. We worked with them in the past, and they've done a pretty good job for us. So both projects going really well.
Thank you, Mike. Tori?
Thanks, Don. I'd start out in about the same area that Mike was talking about, Sherman Park Wedding Gazebo. That's right off of Indian Mound Road, just east of the zoo. Very popular wedding location for us. The pergola that we had there was hit by a drunk driver a few years back, and so now we're putting the pergola back up and also doing some other improvements to make it look nicer. Right now we've got all the demolition done, so pretty soon we'll start pouring concrete and then starting with the pergola construction. So that project should wrap up towards the end of June and be open back up for weddings in July. So it'll be a nice little area with the Buffalo Wall improvements and then the wedding pergola. A holdover project from last year, we were doing some play court replacements. So Town 1 Park, which is right off of 26th Street, just past the interstate, by that McDonald's, if you know where I'm talking about. It's a little known park, but really nice gem back there in that neighborhood. We just got the color coat put on for that, and so that court is open for play. Then we are also replacing the court at Prairie Trail Park, which is right next to Prairie Green on the southeast side of town. We did get the court poured finally, and we're waiting on the concrete to cure. It takes 28 days to cure, and then we can put our color coating on. So we're hoping by June, first part of June, probably in the first week or two, we'll have that court back up and available for play as well. Then we're also doing some repairs on a few bridges that were hurt during the floods. One over at Legacy Park on the west side of town by 12th and Sertoma. That's where our contractor's starting, and they're doing the repair work as the bridge is open to the public. There's no structural issues with it. They're just putting some bolts back in there, and they'll be done with that work here this week. Then they'll be moving on to the bridge over by Sertoma Park, the railroad bridge, spanning the west side to the east side of the diversion dam. That will require a closure, but we'll have a detour that uses 49th Street to get to and from the bike trail in Sertoma Park. That work will take roughly about 2 weeks, so we should be seeing that detour coming up probably in the next week or two. Then they'll move to Riverdale, same type of bridge, old railroad bridge. That will require closure, so you won't be able to get to the bike trail from Riverdale Park or from the bike trail, or to Riverdale Park from the bike trail. But the bike trail will remain open underneath the bridge, and that'll follow the Sertoma project. That's all the updates I have for now.
Thanks, Tori. I would also just mention that during this whole COVID response, the amount of use that we're seeing on our trails and on our city parks is phenomenal. I don't know that I've ever seen it that busy. obviously those days that people could get out, they took every advantage of it. And so it's great to see, and obviously it provides a great value during situations like this where people are asked to stay inside. So the other thing I wanted to share with you is obviously we made the announcement about the outdoor pools not opening this year, and our efforts to try to provide additional programming to make sure that kids have plenty to do this summer. And so I wanted you to be aware, you probably are already aware that the zoo and the Washington Pavilion are going to work with us to provide access to those that qualify for free or reduced pool passes to then be able to have access to the Washington Pavilion, the Great Plains Zoo, to provide access if they meet those verification requirements, the EBT card, the school lunch letter, the Medicaid card, like we use for our pool passes. Obviously, we're going to also expand our programming, our hours of operation at the community centers. We're expanding the number of playground program sites by an additional 11 sites, so that we're essentially in every neighborhood across the city, partnering with the library on a variety of different programs and activities, scavenger hunts, fitness challenges, yoga in the park, just a wide variety of things that some of it we've done before, some of it's expanded, and some of it's new. So again, we're trying to put an emphasis on providing things for kids to do. So, and we'll continue to do that throughout the year, and so we're excited about what that holds in store for our community going forward. With that, I'd be glad to take any questions the board might have.
How are we doing? Can you give us just a little update on staffing and what we're either doing or pausing or not doing?
Yeah. Yes, as far as staffing goes, obviously with the uncertainty with COVID-19 and its implications on sales tax collections, the whole economic outlook is certainly questionable. And so we're taking a very cautious approach about bringing on additional staff. We are bringing on some staff to help us kind of what we would call do the minimum level of maintenance, mowing, trimming, trash removal, some limited ball field maintenance. We're going to open up, we're in the process of opening up restrooms and shelters, and some staff needed to support that. And then we're also going to bring on some recreation program staff, part-time staff, in addition to our full-time staff, to implement some of the programs that I mentioned to you earlier. So again, it'll be what I'll call more of a skeleton crew than what we're used to. But obviously, we don't have pools open, and that's a really big number of employees that help us with that. And then, so it's going to be a significantly reduced number than what we traditionally have. But we are doing that obviously for the uncertain economic future of our city and our ability to collect revenue. And so we're just, again, taking a cautious approach.
And remind us again, it was at the end of this month that a decision is going to be reviewed regarding teams and fields and things like that, right?
Yes, actually we've had regular, or actually a couple calls with all the sports associations that offer, whether it be baseball, softball, men's, women's, co-ed softball, men's softball, just all the sports you typically see in the summertime. We're asking them to develop plans for how they would open up to leagues and potentially tournaments safely, following the CDC guidelines and recommendations, but also know that they have their own governing bodies that also have recommendations for them as well, in addition to what we may, and a lot of times there are a lot of the same things that we're going to ask for, the social distancing, trying to do a good job of educating their patrons, the spectators, the players, the sanitation efforts that we would expect. And so in addition to our team, our SOARS team that the city has with Jeff Eckhoff and Luann Ford in our health department, we'll look at those plans to make sure that they're comfortable with what they're proposing to do. And the cooperation has been really good. The Fast Pitch Association did decide not to have their season this year. We just heard that yesterday. And so many of the groups are going to try to have some form of a season. And so we want them to be able to do that, but we want to make sure they do it in a safe manner. So on the 29th, we'll make that final call and advise them. But with the trend in better numbers with COVID, we told them to get ready to go, and then get their schedules together, get their plans together. We hope to have all those plans approved prior to the 29th, so that when the decision is made, they can go.
Any questions for Don? Thanks again to your leadership.
Yeah, hang on.
Oh, go ahead.
Hang on, Mike has one.
Hey, Don, this is Mike. I'm just curious. I sat in on a meeting this morning with some of the superintendents and athletic coordinators across the state, and they're obviously having some of the same conversations that you are. And maybe I missed this, are club teams going to be allowed to, like if they decide to play, can they use facilities, or are we going to restrict them as well? I don't know if that's been talked about.
Yeah, the club teams will also be able to play. They'll be working with Scott in our office about scheduling those, so there's no restriction on club teams to be able to play.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
You bet.
Is tournament play, is that suspended for the time being, that organizations wouldn't be allowed, like softball, to have tournaments this summer and stuff, or is that something they potentially could still have?
If they submit a plan for a tournament and it's approved by our source team and our, which includes health and planning and our team, then we will allow them to go ahead. That's assuming, again, on the 29th, things haven't changed with our COVID numbers, those kinds of things. But as of right now, it's a go.
Thanks, Don, to you and your team for helping lead the parks through all of this. Appreciate it.
You bet.
All right, next item up, any items added after the agenda was completed? I'm not aware of any. I don't believe there's any reading of any communications to the board. That would leave it open to any board discussion that any of the board members would like to raise at this time. If
Jim,
not,
this is Rick. I just like to comment, being kind of a new board member, you look at the agenda at just today's meeting, the diversity of activity, big and small, and you look at the interaction of the staff and all the consultants and the community members and the associations, and it's just very, very impressive. So I just want to commend the staff and say thanks to the staff for doing such an amazing job. From a donation for a paver or a tree, those types of things, all the way to the CIP planning and the master planning. It's just it's an impressive group, and just appreciate the staff and all they're doing.
thank you, Rick. All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Not everybody all at once. Meeting adjourned.
So, Weber.
Thank you.